Batman is the best superhero in the DC universe. Since the character was created in 1939, there have been many actors to play the character, either in person or by voice. Each actor has brought with them their own skills and take on the character. In this video, we're gonna look at 15 changes actors made to themselves and to the character after taking up the role of the Caped Crusader. Let's take a look. Playing a complex character such as Batman isn't anything new to Robert Pattinson, but there is one aspect of the character that is the physicality. As Batman is known for his fighting skills, Pattinson needed to learn to fight like a pro. That's why he teamed up with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 8th degree red and black belt Higan Machado to not only learn how to fight, but also to increase his stamina and strength. So far, Pattinson has been practicing how to grapple, roll, and even done a little sparring. One of the most infamous Batman voices is Christian Bale's gravelly growl.
I need 10 minutes with the scene before your men contaminate it.
Which he says was inspired by how uncomfortable the Batsuit was and how much he hated it. Ben Affleck also went for that deep, husky growl, but with the help of a voice modulator.
I arranged for you to get transferred to Arkham Asylum in Gotham.
Adam West obviously provided his typical and brilliant way of speech.
An illegal projection buoy cleverly camouflaged.
Michael Keaton deepened and slowed down his.
The Joker's tainted hundreds of chemicals at the source.
And George Clooney, well, he just did George Clooney.
McGregor's syndrome, he's even found a cure for the disease in certain stages.
Robert Pattinson is going for an even more radical approach, admitting that he was imitating the style of his Lighthouse co-star Willem Dafoe's pirate voice, mixed with a baritone growl.
I'm vengeance.
One of the key differences between Robert Pattinson's Batman and some of the more modern Batmen is that his character will be younger and less experienced. Batfleck was much older and perhaps past his peak, and Keaton, Kilmer, and Clooney's Batman were all basically in their prime. The Pattinson Batman will still be learning to find his feet, and from what we see in the trailer, he seems less in control as well. His suit's also a lot punkier and stripped back, unlike the other Batsuits. The Batsuit also gives us a clue that this Batman will be even more affected by his childhood trauma, with him using the gun that killed his parents as the bat symbol on his chest. We do know a little bit about the upcoming Batman movie in that it will likely be closer to a detective Batman storyline, possibly following the long Halloween story arc. We are yet to really see a detective Batman in the live-action world, while the Nolan trilogy was more down to earth, with The Dark Knight probably being the closest to a detective story, although the movie is more in the same vein as a Michael Mann crime caper. Robert Pattinson has taken to reading a lot of Batman comic books, although he was admittedly shocked by just how many there are. The actor has read all the way from the hero's classic runs to some of his more contemporary stories like Arkham City. I just hope he's read Hush. That's a good one. Like Pattinson, Christian Bale, in his own words, wasn't a comic book guy, but actually ended up reading a Batman comic years before getting the role, and later understood that the character wasn't just the campy hero we see in the Adam West series. Understanding that Batman is actually a much darker and complex character made Bale interested in playing the part, and made him think about what he would bring to the role. After he was cast as Batman, he went on to read even more Batman stories such as Dark Victory and Year One to really get into character. Both actors also wore batsuits to their auditions. Bale actually wore the batsuit worn by Val Kilmer for test footage. This helped to prove to Christopher Nolan that Bale could be emblematic and still shine while being predominantly covered. Pattinson also had the power of stepping into the batsuit, although he did feel a little less powerful when he was squeezed out of it later on. One of the major changes Christian Bale made to the character of Batman was that he played the role 4 different ways instead of the typical 2. Usually, actors are either Batman or they're Bruce Wayne, but Bale deconstructed the character and approached him in 4 different ways. The aggressive Batman persona, the billionaire playboy, the young man driven by revenge and anger, and finally, an older, bitter persona warped by his experiences and surroundings. Now, Bale is famous for making changes to his body weight for a role, and his transition from The Machinist to Batman Begins is probably one of the best and most used examples. In The Machinist, Bale dropped down to a weight of 120 pounds, but then had to put weight back on for the role of Batman inside the year. So he did what seemed impossible and put on 100 pounds of muscle before shooting, but then had to lose some of that again because producers saw him as too bulky. Eventually, though, he managed to settle still at around 185 pounds, 65 pounds more than his weight in The Machinist. Ben Affleck weighed 198 pounds at the time of shooting The Town, but had to turn that weight into muscle, and then add some more on. As the suit weighed 75 pounds, Affleck had to be strong not only to wear it, but also to endure weight over a long day of shooting. So he would often be building up his strength using dumbbells, ellipticals, and squats. Affleck then clocked in at 231 pounds with 7.7% fat before trimming down slightly to a weight of 225 pounds, although he still ended up being bigger than his stunt double. The results of Affleck's workout routine made him the most physical of all the Batmen. The BVS team wanted Batfleck to look like an MMA heavyweight puncher, which would match Schneider's vision of a much rougher, darker Batman that had no qualms in shooting and killing people that got in his way, and would even drop a couple of F-bombs. For better or for worse, Affleck's Batman has gone the furthest in terms of the darkness of the character, although we are yet to see Pattinson's full version. But the darker tones of Bale, Affleck, and Pattinson might not have been possible if it wasn't for Michael Keaton's performance in Tim Burton's Batman. Neither Keaton or Burton were comic book guys, but Keaton was brought in for the role as it was believed he could do both the funny side of Batman as well as the crazy smash-your-face inside. Fans were still furious with the casting and feared that they would again have a campy, silly version of the character, but Keaton's performance was much more grounded. Kilmer's performance as Batman was much more in keeping with his action comedy work, and the movie as a whole was much more zany than the Burton movies. Kilmer eventually left after butting heads with Schumacher, and then he passed the bat symbol on to George Clooney and the dreaded Batnips, with Batman and Robin even crazier than Batman Forever. Clooney, by the way, has since apologized for his role as Batman, but I am sorry, George. I just cannot unsee those Batnips. But despite there being fan backlash against the funnier, campier versions of the character, there is one actor who got away with it: Will Arnett. The Canadian actor's brilliant and hilarious voice work in the Lego Movie was so good that it warranted its own spin-off, and it's hard not to think of Arnett's performance when you think of the Man in Black, or sometimes very dark gray. Kevin Conroy has voiced the character since the 90s, and even got the opportunity to play him in live action. It's not just that his wonderfully deep voice works, but he brought tons of nuance to the role, which was lost by other actors who have also worn the cape and cowl. Keep doing what you're doing, Kevin Conroy. Let's end on one piece of trivia, shall we? While the Adam West series may get some slack, it was actually the popularity of the show that kept the comic book series from being canceled. The Batman comics were dwindling in popularity and were on the cusp of cancellation when the viewership of the TV series brought them new life. See ya.